First and foremost, I'd like to apologize for all of the background noises that you are inevitably going to be hearing through this video. It is summertime and 4 of the 5 children are home. The 5-year-old is in the room with me with his fan on, listening to his tablet, and I've tried to record this. I've tried to use the AI voice, but it was just terrible. So many apologies for all of the background you're going to hear. Now, onto this video. While I was researching various funeral and burial customs from around the world, I came across this video. And I'm going to be honest, I had to do some research because it is from the Philippines, somewhere, I want to say a little bit north of Manila. And the commentary was done at the time of the video from another gentleman who was working on this plot, and it was in some variation, some dialect of Tagalog, and all of the interpretive software that I was using couldn't translate it properly just because apparently there are quite a few different dialects and I guess it couldn't discern. So I did some research. I couldn't find anything on this little boy, Jithro Rosales, who's being exhumed. He was 7 years old, and like I said, I believe this is somewhere north of Manila, and I wasn't sure exactly what the purpose of the exhumation was. Again, this is something I was not familiar with until I started diving deeper into this. So it appears that in the Philippines, when you are buried, you lease your cemetery plot. It's usually on, it looked to be a 5-year lease, and as all things real estate do, it can run the gamut from the cheapest of the cheap to the most expensive luxury plot. But they all seem to have in common that you get them for a 5-year lease, and then at the end of that lease, your family has the option of renewing the lease and paying that fee again, or they will exhume you and at that point give the remains to your family should they wish to have them, and then they can either find another place to inter you, they can have you cremated. I've read that there are ossuaries, but I couldn't really find anything on that. So if anybody can find information on ossuaries like in the Manila area where they may have the bones or display the bones, because all I can picture when I hear that are like the catacombs in Paris, like where the bones are all, created into giant art installations almost. But again, you can either have your family come retrieve your remains, you can be cremated, they can bury you somewhere else, possibly with other family members, or if nobody comes and claims you, they will bury you in what is tantamount to a potter's field. So just a large plot for the indigent and the unclaimed. I do not believe they're marked in any capacity. It's just kind of, I don't know how to say it without being rude, but it's for the discarded remains of the people who can't pay. From what I was able to find, it didn't look like chemical embalming was something that was widely practiced in this area. And I guess I can kind of understand why, because if you intend to exhume a family member or the deceased within about a 5-year period, I'm guessing that it would be preferable if they had gone back to nature as much as possible. Because in watching these videos, and I've seen multiples of them, and I will link the original video in the description of this video, but it appears that when they do eventually open up the crypt or the niche or whatever you'd like to call it, the caskets are almost completely like rotted away. So I'm not sure what exactly they're made of, because I'm in the United States, the southern United States at this point. And I have been in the death industry. It's been several years since I've been out of that, but the caskets that I'm used to, even on the cheaper end, would have lasted longer. This almost looks like it's made out of something incredibly light, like almost a balsa wood. But again, if people have more information, I would love to know what it is, because it was really hard to research for me at least. But to carry on, usually they are empty. They are opening the niche and removing the casket, which is almost entirely disintegrated in a majority of these cases. And when they do open that, the body is reduced to 99% bones. It has gone through largely most of the decomposition process, and it is largely skeletonized. There may be some hair and a little bit of clothing left behind, but for the most part, you're dealing with a body that has been completely skeletonized. The gentleman removed the bones from what's left of the casket and placed them into bags. In watching these videos again, I've seen them put into generic trash bags. I believe in this case, it looks almost like a feed bag to me. Again, being in Texas in the United States, all I can equate it to is a bag looking almost like a seed corn bag. And they take this tiny little 7-year-old child and remove bone by bone to the best of their ability and put it into this bag. And I was unable to find out if the family then retrieved him or if he did end up in that potter's field we were talking about earlier. I've seen videos to where this was happening, where the family itself was on standby and they were watching the removal, and then they immediately took their loved ones with them to parts unknown. But in this case, there didn't appear to be any family members, friends, anything like that. It was just the gentleman who worked for the cemetery and were removing the child. Now, I have to say, in a lot of these videos, when the gentlemen are dealing with the remains, even though they are largely skeletonized, they are wearing gardening gloves, like gloves that may have something protective in regards to the masonry and things like that they're using, but aren't like nitrile or latex that would keep those bodily fluids that may be remaining away from their skin. And a lot of the times they were not wearing masks. So thoughts and prayers to these gentlemen. You're doing a service and God bless you, but you need to take care of yourself too. Now, in this particular situation, I am not sure what the cause of death was for this particular child. I just know he's a 7-year-old boy, and his first name was Jithro. His last name is Rosales. And he had been in this tomb at this point for 5 years, and I'm not sure if the family couldn't pay or what the situation was. Maybe they were out of contact, but regardless, no one had renewed the lease on this particular plot, and therefore he was being removed so that it could be swept out and sold again to the next family. And you can see here what we were talking about earlier in regards to the fact that this casket is only 5 years old. It has not been buried in the ground where groundwater or anything like that could penetrate. It was sitting largely like encased in cement in a very humid environment, but still not soaking in groundwater, penetrating groundwater, and it is destroyed. The casket is in pieces, and it's nothing like I've seen before. Like I said, it almost looks like the containers that we would use here in the United States when your loved one or the deceased is being cremated, and those are cardboard with like a very, very light wood spine to them. Like I said, the interior almost looks like a plastic sheeting, and the exterior is rotten beyond all belief, to the point where when the gentlemen are trying to remove it, it just flakes and falls apart. And as you can see, like I said, I do not believe, and I haven't been able to find anything in regards to chemical embalming being largely practiced in this area, because as you can see, he is almost 100% skeletonized at this point. And had he had a chemical embalming, I believe, especially not being where groundwater could have penetrated him, even in the humidity, and even with maybe the inclusion of insects, I think he would have been a lot less decomposed than he is here. But again, knowing the situation and knowing that the probability is high that you are going to be exhumed within 5 years, maybe 10 years at the most. Maybe this is a practice, a chosen practice there to have you be skeletonized so that there's less to remove. I'm really not sure. Again, if anybody's watching this and they have any kind of knowledge, I would love to know. So please leave that in the comments below. Now, also, if you can see around the ground near these men while they're working, it is just rubble and trash. And behind them, I think at a certain point, we may have skipped it or it may be coming up, there are plastic bags and soda bottles and water bottles, everything just discarded in and around like the vicinity of the cemetery. And Again, this is something I'm not familiar with, because where I am from, when you buy a cemetery plot or plots or a niche or something in a columbarium, like if you're going to put cremated remains, it is usually a one-time fee. You buy your piece of land, and it comes with an addendum for perpetual care. So that cemetery and that land and those surroundings are going to be mowed and taken care of in perpetuity. The gentleman removed the bones by hand, any materials, any offerings, anything that was left with that person when they were buried. I've seen them remove bottles of perfume, shoes, hats, jewelry, and they always seem to put it in the bag with the remains. Unfortunately, like when hair and things like that are left behind, I've also seen them remove those and add them to the bag as well. Again, I don't know if these bags are then, if no one claims them, I'm not sure if the materials of the remains are then put into like a box or another version of a casket, a crypt, something when they're buried in their potter's field, or if literally they just go in the bag itself. Again, I would love to know, but I've spent some time researching and things like that. I couldn't find any information on. It was mostly the fact that the plots are leased, how long they're leased for, and prices and things like that, but nothing in specific as to what happens when they're not claimed, other than the fact that they will go into a potter's field with the other people who aren't claimed, and eventually it'll be buried over, and then another large plot will be opened, and the cycle continues. So bless this sweet baby, and bless the men and women that are doing this particular job, because it may be necessary, but it isn't something that I think a lot of us would want to do. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this on customs from different parts of the world, things that at least I'm unfamiliar with, I find this greatly interesting. But if you are interested in seeing more, let me know in the comments below. Thank you.